to make that team, so good for him.
All right, we are joined now by Jake Rowe. He covers Georgia for Dogs 247. Jake, how much of what we hear or see or maybe read, Georgia having been battered a little bit during their fall camp with injuries?
I think a lot of it's accurate. They're going to be missing a couple of key guys, a few key guys against Clemson. George Pickens, everybody's known since spring. Darnell Washington, the big 6'8" tight end out of Las Vegas. He's a sophomore. He's more than likely not going to play. Foot injury. Tyke Smith, the defensive back they got from West Virginia, is also banged up, and they're going to be without Eric Gilbert, the transfer they got from LSU. Georgia made a big splash in the transfer portal market this offseason, and two of the three guys they got aren't going to be available to play in this game. Eric Gilbert's not with the team right now, so they're going to be missing some key guys, but they're also getting healthier and getting guys back kind of almost by the day. We're learning, they had some injuries in preseason camp that have kind of worked themselves out, and they're not going to be as unhealthy for the opener as they were a couple weeks ago, but they're still going to be missing some key guys.
Without Pickens, that's a big one. Who takes his place? Because with this Clemson team, as good as the Georgia defense may be, you're going to have to match him on some big plays.
Yeah, Jermaine Burton, I think, is going to be Georgia's number one wide receiver. He came in last year, and he was raw. You saw it early in the season. He ran the wrong route in the opener against Arkansas, and it caused an interception. He did some things, later on in the year, however, that kind of gave you the impression that he's got number one receiver capability. And this kid had 8 catches for 197 yards, 2 touchdowns against Mississippi State. He was, another catch for about 10 or 15 yards away from breaking Georgia's school record for all-time receiving yards in a game as a freshman. And he had a big game against Alabama last year. He had some long runs, some long screen plays. Pickens is that alpha dog in that receiver room in terms of going up and making a play. But Jermaine Burton, when you look at the entire skill set receiver, size, speed, athleticism, quickness, and the ability to play multiple spots, run after catch, he may be Georgia's most dangerous wideout in that regard, and he should be healthy and ready to go. He's going to step into that number one role.
So, Jake, JT Daniels will be the man at QB1. Had to overcome injuries and things like that, but really shined towards the end of the year. What's the confidence level and anticipation, expectations for JT Daniels guiding this offense?
It's been really interesting to follow this offseason because, Kirby Smart, whether he's being truthful or not, I don't know. But he's always the guy that harps on mental this, mental that, focus, and the intangibles, or not necessarily the intangibles, but kind of the abstract adjectives, I would say, and nouns of kind of describing and putting labels on a guy. Well, this offseason, it was no concern as far as that goes. He's talked over and over about how impressed and how confident he is in JT Daniels' ability to prepare and focus, and his one track mind in terms of playing quarterback and getting ready to play and things of that nature. All the talk was about the physical improvement. He got bigger, he got stronger, he got more mobile, and I think that's something that kind of raised my eyebrows as far as this team goes, because I think those are things that's a good thing, because JT Daniels is a guy that, he can handle the mental aspect of the quarterback position. He did show last year that he's an extremely tough football player. He got beat up pretty good in that Cincinnati game, but kept coming. Finally led them on a game-winning drive where they kicked a field goal and eked out a win, despite missing quite a few big-time players in that game. So he got off to a little bit of a slow start this preseason. Didn't have a very good first scrimmage. Had a very good second scrimmage and a really good last 2 or 3 weeks of practice. So, I think the confidence level is really high there. And you've heard players on both sides of the ball talk about kind of the way he goes about his business and how much they appreciate it.
All right, Georgia and Clemson. We know Georgia's got they have alpha dogs, they have dudes, athletes that can run, all that kind of thing. But isn't this one of the few teams, not that there's more than just one or two, but isn't Clemson one of those teams as well that can match them easily dog for dog?
Yeah, for sure. Clemson's got a lot of really good players, man. Clemson is stacked, and you look no further than the quarterback position where DJ Uiagalelei is a big time football player, big time potential. He's got a couple starts under his belt, so that's going to help him. Clemson's defensive line is one of the most talented in the country. Georgia also has a really talented one, but they're not going to play anybody else on the schedule that when you start comparing position units side by side is going to really be able to compare to them on the defensive line. Clemson's that team. Clemson's the only defensive line on Georgia's schedule that I think could really give Georgia's offensive line a problem. Not that I think it's an elite offensive line, but it's a good one. And, the Tigers have 9 of 11 starters coming back on defense. One of those starters is going to start for one of the guys that would have returned is going to start for Georgia, Darian Kendrick at cornerback. He transferred in. But you look at the wide receivers, they're all big, they're all, athletic. I think the one area where Clemson is a big-time question mark is their offensive line. But I remember a few years ago when Trevor Lawrence was a freshman, and that offensive line was supposed to be a question mark going into the Alabama game in the national championship game, and they beat the fool out of Alabama. So that coaching staff has shown that they know how to kind of coach around their weaknesses, and I think the offensive line is a weak point for this team. But, we'll see how they can scheme around it.
Jake, you mentioned the schedule that they have, and if this is not a year for Kirby Smart, especially if he can pull the first one off to go undefeated, I'm not sure what is. I know that the cocktail party comes up at the end of October, but if they do win this game, do you see them being a team that could get on just an unbelievable roll?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, listen, if Georgia win or lose this first game, obviously you win it. If Georgia wins this first game, anything less than an undefeated regular season feels like a failure. If Georgia loses this game, any more than one loss in the regular season feels like a failure. It's one of those situations where Georgia can give itself some margins for error by winning this first game, and they can still have all the goals on the table if they lose it. But those 11 games, I haven't made my season predictions yet. But when I do, there's no doubt in my mind I'm going to pick Georgia to win those final 11 games because they're just going to be favored by at least a touchdown or in a lot of instances by double digits to win those games, and they should win them all.
What is their biggest concern?
Oh, man. It's tough because they don't really have like a glaring, oh, my God, what are they going to do about this position type concern. But they've got about 3 different spots, I would say, where they've got to kind of get it figured out, and they need to get better as the season goes along. I'd say cornerback. The defensive backfield, just in general, that cornerback and nickel spot, I think are spots they're going to have to kind of get settled. I think they've got to get some stuff sorted out on the offensive line because, one of their centers got hurt. The guy that was projected to be the starter early on suffered an injury to his snapping hand, and he was going to be in a battle for the center spot anyway. But they've got to get healthy and get, gelled on the offensive line. And they've got to get healthy at wide receiver as well. I think that's another big one.
Hey, man, we appreciate your time. Have fun. What a game, huh? What a great opening game after the dud of a handful of games that not many people cared about to open the weekend or open the season. That's Jake Rowe, Dogs 247, covers Georgia. Thanks for his time on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Coming up next, he covers